Alright, what is going on, guys? It is your boy TKD123 here, back in here on PlayStation Source, and we are going to go over everything you need to know, all the info from gameplay, upgrades, lost levels, whatever you want to know about the Last of Us Part 2 remastered game, including a little bit more about that No Return Roguelike Mode that's coming to the game. But we're going to have a dedicated video to that coming out in a few days' time, where that will be focused on just that specific roguelike mode that a lot of people, including myself, are excited for. But let's get right into it. The link to the blog that I'll be referencing here will be in the description, and timestamps will be down below as well to jump around to different sections in case you want to know something specific about the game. So to start off here, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered is coming out on January 19, 2024 for a PlayStation 5 release exclusively, and I assure you that this game will come to PC at a later date, likely probably will fall in line with the release of Season 2 for Last of Us on HBO, but that is yet to be seen. But definitely look out for this on PC in the future. But what do you get when you pre-order The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered on PlayStation 5? You'll get access to these two things in game early. You get ammo capacity upgrade, which will be of course to upgrade your ammo, and you get a crafting training manual. Now the crafting training manual unlocks a new branch for upgrades via supplements that you find in game that unlock the ability to craft items, skills, and recipes such as melee upgrades, faster crafting, smoke bombs, improved health kits, etc. So they're very useful for the game of Last of Us, and it's unlocked naturally in game at around 3 to 4 hours of playtime. So it's a nice little head start just to get the edge early on in game, but I wouldn't call it really game breaking if you get this pre-order and get that early. It's just some, rudimentary, just base level things that you get with the crafting training manual. Now let's go into the pricing, the different additions for this game, as well as a very nicely added upgrade path for those that already own The Last of Us on PlayStation 4. So we got the standard edition here coming in at $50, just gonna get the base game here for $50, and I'll highlight once we go through all the different upgrades why overall, if you're a first-time comer to The Last of Us Part 2, this is a great price point for what you're getting in this game, in my opinion, right? But the next edition, if you want to go a little bit crazy here, those little collector's editions, is the WLF edition, the Washington Liberation Front edition specifically. It will come in at $100, and it's only available right now on PlayStation Direct as far as I can tell, but at least in the US, it does appear to be sold out here in the US. But if history does repeat itself, these editions tend to restock around launch day, so definitely keep your eyes peeled if you really want one of these editions. But for right now, they are sold out as of this recording. But in this edition, you do get access to a steelbook display case, 4 enamel pins, which are really cool because there's the Hamsa and Abby's hammer, really cool stuff right there with the pins, a Washington Liberation Front patch, which is really cool as well, and a total of 47 Society of Champions trading cards, with 8 of them being holographic. Now these are really cool because these are actually in-game collectibles in The Last of Us Part 2. So the fact that you can have these trading cards and everything in physical form is super neat, really cool touch to the WLF edition of The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. But if you don't want to spend 50, you don't want to spend 100, you don't need to if you already own The Last of Us Part 2. So you can actually get The Last of Us Part 2 PS5 upgrade path for $10. This is for those that own the PS4 version of The Last of Us Part 2. You will only pay $10 when the game comes out, and you'll be able to get access to that $50 PS5 version for just that $10 fee. Now this $10 upgrade fee, you're not able to get it right now and have it pre-downloading before the game comes out. This will only be enabled once the game releases, so you will have to wait just a little bit after the game comes out to actually redeem it and download it. But it is $10, which is a great thing in my opinion overall. Once we get to the breakdown at the end of the video where I go over my thoughts and opinions, I think this is overall a really good deal for what you're getting from a game that you already played back in 2020. With all those aside, let's go into what this remastered version of The Last of Us Part 2 has in store for us in terms of new combat, because to me specifically, this next point right here, the No Return mode, is definitely the mode that I am most excited excited about with this new offering, with this remastered of The Last of Us Part 2. Like I said before, I will have a separate all info video dedicated to this mode because we have a lot to talk about involving just the mechanics and what we can actually get and unlock and how it all works with No Return Mode. There will be a more fleshed out video in the future, but for right now, the No Return Mode is a brand new roguelike mode featuring randomized encounters and a new way to experience The Last of Us Part 2's combat. The mode has a host of new playable characters to choose from, where players can plan out their run and choose between stealth and combat encounters, filled with a plethora of enemies and new twists for players to enjoy. Players can unlock new characters and skins to use in the game and compete on the global leaderboard as part of the daily run. Look out for the standalone video, like I said before, but this mode looks really cool, really fun, and above all else, us factions fans over here, we are grieving over not having factions being a project that we get to play and see the light of day with. But to get a mode here that emphasizes the combat system that we love so much in part 2, I'll take it, man. I'll take it. And I love me a good roguelike. You know what I'm saying? We just got done with Valhalla. Y'all know we love roguelikes over here. So definitely excited for this No Return mode. Next up here, we have the inclusion of a guitar free mode. So this mode lets players play the guitar in the game's story endlessly and whenever they want to. Players can unlock new instruments to play, audio effects, pedals to change the sound, use different characters and locations to get a particular vibe for whatever you're going for as you're playing the guitar. I probably won't spend a ton of time on this because number one, I don't know how to play the guitar, you know what I'm saying? It'd be cool if there was like a lesson type thing, like if there were like guitar lessons in this mode, that'd be kind of fire, but there doesn't seem to be. But I know a lot of people, when Last of Us Part 2 came out, they were playing the guitar freely and playing like real songs because the guitar is actually functional in the game. So I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy this, but for me personally, I'll probably skip this, but pretty cool to see right here as well. Now, a returning feature from The Last of Us Part 1, the remake of the original Last of Us game, we have the speedrun mode coming to The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, where you'll be able to track your best times at completing the full game with a handy clock in the corner as you play through the game's main story. Since it's specifically stated here that this is from The Last of Us Part 1 and it must be unlocked, I imagine players will have to beat the game or import their PS4 save to unlock it for themselves off the bat. And it'll probably be packed with the same features like permadeath, new game plus toggle, challenge toggle, chapter times, and more. But none of those features are specifically confirmed quite yet, but I would be, willing to bet that's probably a safe bet to assume that these will probably be in the speedrun mode for The Last of Us Part 2. And I can't wait to see people do it because this game is 30 hours, at the minimum, I feel like. So to be able to do it faster than that is going to be pretty impressive for the speed running community. Now, right after I get some runs in the No Return mode, I will probably spend some time with these lost levels. Now, these lost levels are a new addition to The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered that are basically playable sequences that were previously cut from the game, but now they include embedded developer commentary to give them richer and more context. We'll get access to 3 different lost levels according to IGN that are called Jackson Dance, Boar Hunt, and Sewers. So we have some screenshots here in the trailer that people have speculated and what's probably likely to be true about some of these lost levels, but then there's one that we definitely don't know anything about, but we can maybe infer some things involving the title. So going from them one by one, we have Jackson Dance, which is rumored to be featuring Ellie walking through the town before dancing with Dina at the famous hall scene that we all know and love from Last of Us Part 2. Now this section, Jackson's Dance, is also supposed to contain a part where we get to meet Kat, which is Ellie's ex-girlfriend who gave Ellie her tattoo, and drinking will be involved in this chapter as well, all the fun stuff before going to the dance hall, right? But what's really cool about this specific lost level is that technically this is the kind of first thing that happens in the modern timeline of The Last of Us Part 2, because the game, opens up with a little, flashback to the Last of Us 1 era, right, with, Ellie and Joel, but then it flashes 4 years forward in the timeline, and they keep referencing this, commotion that happened at the dance last night, and that is what this is here. So it's pretty cool to see that that we'll be able to kind of play an early intro level to the game that was cut from the final build. The next lost level is called Boar Hunt, which is set to reference a boar hunting scene discussed in Ellie's journal where she corners a wounded boar in a general store. Now, according to Neil Druckmann, this is supposed to take place during the farm scene in The Last of Us Part 2, with Dina and JJ being there at the farmhouse, and this is supposed to show that Ellie has a sort of need to continue killing for her to deal with post-traumatic stress of everything prior to that point in the game, that this will inevitably set her off to Santa Barbara for the last major section in the game of The Last of Us Part 2. So pretty cool to see this little kind of interstitial here where we see Ellie's violent nature kind of come to a boiling point when she has to take off for Santa Barbara to engage with Abby. The last lost level here is called Sewers. Now, we don't know anything specific about this lost level chapter, but it's been alleged and rumored that this takes place in between the first Stalker encounter and the first Scar encounter. So this was probably a little bit too much for the player in those two things, because going back to back from the Stalker to the Scar was a lot in that game. Okay, it's a very meaty section right there, right? So I bet that's why it was probably taken out, but judging by the name of it, it could call back to the game's original sewer section in The Last of Us Part 1, which was extremely brutal, and I'd be very interested to see how people use the sewers to survive in The Last of Us world other than the first game. Like, I'd be very curious to see if they're going to emulate that here with this sewers lost level. Before we continue on with the other features of this Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, I think the one thing I want to say here is that, you know, the lost levels sounds really cool, and I will probably play them most likely, and, you know, not even most likely, I will play them and probably upload them to the channel, right? But I do wish that they were kind of completed as separate bonus content for the remaster, right? To add additional context to the story, right? Part of me just feels like it's a little bit low effort to kind of just, you know, fling them into this remaster and like not finish them and just have commentary over them, which I do appreciate the commentary. I don't lie, you know, I can't lie. I do appreciate the commentary, and I do appreciate whatever work they did to these lost levels to bring them onto this remaster, but I just kind of wish that they were done. I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I being too much? Am I asking too much? Let me know down below in that comment section. Alongside the developer commentary and the lost levels, the game will also be fitted with the director's commentary that accompanies the main story of The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. These will feature director Neil Druckmann, narrative lead Haley Gross, and actors Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson, and Laura Bailey as Joel, Ellie, and Abby, respectively, to offer insight into the story and its characters during cutscenes so that the commentary doesn't interrupt gameplay. I will definitely probably play this. I'm not sure at some, maybe not off the bat, but I'll definitely play it. But it is really cool to get an in-depth look from the directors of the game to really get a good look on the game's development and some really cool facts and insight. I will definitely play this at some point, but that is a really cool addition to The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Now let's go over some features and graphical improvements to The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Now, first up here in fidelity mode, the game will run in native 4K resolution at what I presume a 30 frames per second frame rate, with the performance mode offering us a native 1440p that is upscaled to 4K at 60 frames per second, which I presume as well with the performance mode. And they have a new toggle here for the unlocked frame rate mode, which will be for those that have VRR compatible displays, which could mean the game could potentially run at 120 frames at maybe 1080p. But what I'm most intrigued about is that if it does have VRR support, it could theoretically run in the fidelity mode at 4K at 40 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second. So that I will be definitely checking out on my new monitor. I'm hoping that is the case here with this remastered. But the game also comes packed with increased texture resolution, level of detail distances, improved shadow quality, animation sampling rate, and more as well. Now, there is no doubt in my mind that this game is going to look beautiful on PS5, right? Because my only thing is that I don't think it's going to look that much better than the PS4 counterpart, because right now you can play The Last of Us Part 2 on PS5 in 60 frames and it looks incredible. Like, it looks absolutely incredible, right? So I bet that there will be an improvement, just probably not a crazy looking overall leap in improvement on the PS5 version. We also have some new PlayStation 5 specific enhancements and features to the game as well. These include improved loading times, haptic feedback, adaptive triggers as well for the DualSense support, along with the ability to unlock weapon skins and outfits to use in game for Ellie and Abby, which is pretty neat. We saw this in Last of Us Part 1, so really cool to see it here in Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. We also have some really cool benefits to photo mode, which will be adding dynamic lighting, frame forward, and gaze direction, as well as new frame and logo options to use within photo mode as well for those great, beautiful shots to share on Twitter. And lastly here, the game does support the ability for you to import your PS4 save to the PS5 version. So hopefully you'll be able to get to that speedrun option very quickly by just importing your PS4 save to PS5. I hope that's the case, but I don't see why that wouldn't be the case either. And lastly here, they did outline some really cool accessibility options that are being added to The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. First up here, all previous Part 2 accessibility options from the original game are back here in the remastered version, as well as new additions like descriptive audio has been added to the game, which describes what is going on in the scene alongside the dialogue as well. So it'll say, you know, you're in the white room, blue room, while the dialogue is also being said to you as well if you need that for accessibility needs. A new speech to vibrations mode is also available in Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, which uses the DualSense controller to indicate character speech and cadence with the vibration of the controller. So I think that is a really, really cool feature. If you never used it, it literally sounds like the sound waves are coming from inside the controller, and it's almost like putting your hand up to your neck as you're talking. Like, you can feel those vibrations in the controller. It's a really cool and neat feature for those that need it as well. So that is everything included here with the Last of Us Part 2 Remastered game. Now, overall, I think for the newcomer, right? If you played Part 1, maybe you watched the show first, and you played The Last of Us Part 1 on PS5, and you have not played Part 2 yet, I think this is an incredible offer, because not only did this game come out in 2020, but it has a 30-hour story, more content than the original game, like lost levels and no return mode, at a higher quality and fidelity for a lower price when they originally came out at $50. So I think overall for the newcomer, this is a great addition to your PS5 library. I think you're going to enjoy the game immensely. Hopefully, you know what I'm saying, maybe you won't, but I bet you probably will if you liked Part 1, right? But I will say, for the person also that is like me, that played the game in 2020, bought it for $60, and now you have a $10 charge to get enhancements such as the no return mode, lost levels, the graphical and visual fidelity, which I will stand by saying that I don't think it's going to be that crazy of a jump, right? I don't think it's going to be that much better of a looking game, but objectively speaking, will probably be a better looking game. For only $10, I still think that is not the craziest thing in the world. We have seen them not do upgrade paths for these games in the past for like first party games. So if it's for $10, I'm personally not going to trip over $10 for me personally, right? But those watching may feel different. Let me know down below. How do you feel about it? Do you think this is a cash grab? Do you think this is unnecessary to charge $10 for? Or overall, you're seeing the value for the new player that has not played Part 2, and you're seeing the value from the person that has played it, and maybe $10 isn't that bad? Make sure to let me know down below in that comment section. Thank you all for watching, and as always, greatness awaits.